Tom Taylor and Yasmin Putri create a brand new world in the DC Multiverse as heroes and villains find their kingdoms forever changed when a familiar spacecraft lands on Earth, bringing forth a new age for the medieval world. Tom Taylor again constructs an incredible alternate Earth scenario for the DC universe and its characters, beginning this new run with a twist that is so genius, one that has happened before but I'm surprised that hasn't happened as often as I would have thought. The twist I'm talking about obviously is that Jor-El and Lara survived Krypton's explosion and came to Earth with their unborn son, which in turn changes so much about Superman's origin and the origin of the heroes on Earth. Mix that in with some amazing high fantasy world building and concepts and settings, and you have a recipe for an incredibly fun and refreshing story. For a first issue, this sets up just the right amount of plot and backstory to pull the reader in and begin asking questions about all these different kingdoms and all these different characters and who's warring with who, all of which will be explained throughout the 12 issues, of course. The opening twist alone is enough for me to be drawn in, but as we explore more about the Kingdom of El and the Kingdom of Storms throughout this issue, there are so many little things like the banishment of magic in the El Kingdom and the battle between the Kingdom of the El and the Kingdom of the Storm with Jefferson Pierce's people, as well as Harley Quinn finally living up to her name. It all just makes the world so damn interesting. The final pages and reveals, which I won't spoil here, are so damn good as well, since they have that classic 1-2 punch that Taylor does a lot in his work, where you get this really great bit of information or something revealed about a character and then it's immediately followed up by an incredible gut punch that you never saw coming. It makes the wait for issue 2 so much harder as well, but one that I am eagerly anticipating. Yasmin Putri lends her immense talent to the book, and boy are the redesigns she did for everything and everyone so damn good. I really enjoy how much she transforms so many classic hero costumes into more fantasy, medieval inspired armors or regal attire. Like Batman is of course a knight, so he's in knight armor that has bats and stuff all over it, whereas Superman or Prince Kal-El is more of a regal attire and sort of something you'd see a prince ride up in like his shirt, and like he's got a cape and everything. It's really quite great, and not to mention she colored the whole thing with these great bright and rich colors that just make everything pop off the page. Dark Knights of Steel issue 1 was a fantastically fun beginning to DC's new high fantasy world, filled with so many genius plot twists and turns that make reading characters I've read for years feel incredibly new, fresh, and exciting. I'm completely invested in this world and what Tom Taylor and his team have in store for us. I'm going to give this issue a 10 out of 10. Dark Knights of Steel issue 1 begins on Krypton, where Jor-El and Lara discover the worst is happening and the planet is being destroyed. Jor knows that the rocket is their son's only chance now, as the rocket speeds off from Krypton as the planet is destroyed by its son. Sometime later, the rocket falls to Earth, coming to a stop as the pod doors blow off, and inside, Jor-El and Lara have survived the trip. Lara can feel her baby coming. Jor-El hears something as a group of archers on horseback ride at firing their arrows, as Jor tells them to stop since his wife is in labor, but they do not. Continuing to shout, a fire builds behind Jor's eyes as he unleashes heat vision across the men, killing them all as his son Kal-El is born. Jor reassures his wife that everything will be alright as they head to a nearby castle settlement. In the Kingdom of the Storms, a young boy named John Constantine begins speaking riddles about the Green Man waiting and the gods being born and killed. A serf tells King Jefferson Pierce that he shouldn't be there in such a lowly hut, but Jefferson tells his servant to continue to write down the young man's prophecies. John's riddles get louder as he tells Jefferson to look up into the sky. Jefferson asks what he sees, and the boy, snapping out of his daze, tells him he sees the end is coming. 19 years later, at the castle of El, Prince Kal-El asks the Dark Knight Bruce Wayne if he can come with him. Bruce tells him no, so Kal reminds him that he relies on children, yet he won't have him at his side, but Bruce tells him he's practically a god, as Alfred reminds the prince that he can shoot fire from his eyes. Bruce armors up, knowing that he is capable, but he is sworn to protect the elves from the thing that can harm them, that being magic, and he will not lead Kal into danger. Kal wonders if Bruce is immune to magic, but the Dark Knight doesn't say anything, riding off as Alfred tells Kal that the silent glare happens only when Bruce loses an argument. Bruce and Alfred head to Feist Village, where they meet with Richard Grayson and Duke Thomas, who have tracked the Banshee to the Pullman, the local inn, and the other Robins are evacuating the village. The heroes heroes head into the town, finding Jason dragging a man from the inn, learning that it's the innkeeper who wouldn't leave, so he knocked him out. Bruce tells the group that from now on, Stephanie Brown will be doing the reasoning since most of Jason's diplomacy ends with someone comatose. Steph tells Bruce where the Banshee is in the inn, so he goes in alone, confronting the woman who knows him to be the bastard Bat Prince. Bruce thinks of her as an assassin sent by King Jefferson, but Diana Lance has no wish to harm the elves, no matter how much they harm her. Bruce tells her that magic and her kind are outlawed in the kingdom and she has violated the law, telling the woman that she'll be imprisoned and she won't be mistreated if she comes quietly. Dinah knows that there is nothing quiet about her as she unleashes one of her screams, destroying much of the inn. Bruce, however, is unfazed and still alive, making both himself and Dinah wonder how this is possible, as Dinah unleashes another sonic attack. Suddenly, Prince Cal appears, shutting the woman up by placing a hand over her mouth as Batman knocks her out with the hilt of his sword. Bruce knows that he isn't supposed to be there as Cal asks if his friend is okay since he's bleeding from the ears. Bruce brushes it off as he tells the prince to bring her to the L dungeons with the others. Arriving back at the castle, Bruce is met by Harley Quinn, who continues to annoy Bruce as he enters the castle. Bruce tells her he isn't in the mood for her antics as Cal tells Harley Quinn to leave him alone, and she does since she knows that they are both in terrible trouble as the prince and the knight are taken to see King Jor-El and Queen Lara. Bruce apologizes for what happened, taking the blame for Cal being there, but Cal tells him not to lie for him since he went with Bruce under his own accord. Lara reminds her son that they are there to try and protect him, but Cal knows that he won't stand by and have Bruce and his Robins risk their lives, not when axes will break against his skin. The men reassure Jor-El that the Banshee has been found and jailed, but that she wasn't coming to kill them. Bruce, however, knows that a magical assassin was sent from Jefferson's court, as per what his Robin there said, but Cal knows that doesn't make Dinah the assassin, since while Jor-El talks about all the good they have been doing, they are still locking up innocents. Jor-El reminds their son that they are the last of their race and he will do whatever is necessary to make sure he protects them. Bruce knows that he'll continue to protect them all, bowing before his king and queen, but Lara stops him, saying that Bruce's parents were the Monarchs and their friends, and this is much his home as it is theirs, so he will not kneel to anyone. Jor knows that if he had his way, Bruce would be king instead of them, but Bruce knows the people see them as gods, but him as a bastard. Cal does not care, but Bruce knows that the entire kingdom does care, and their traditions just don't stop at the whim of a smiling spaceman. Cal knows that their traditions are idiotic, as Jor stops them from bickering, wanting Bruce to take a walk with him. Heading onto the battlements, Bruce is worried about the thunder building outside, knowing Jor should fear it like he does. The king asks his adopted son what's wrong, so Bruce knows he's afraid, since today he stood in the path of destruction and he should have been killed, yet he was barely hurt, and it's not the first time something like this has happened. Bruce thinks that ever since the Green Man attacked, he has had a dark magic inside of him, thinking he should be banished or locked away since he is cursed. In Hob Forest nearby, Oliver Queen voices his displeasure about doing this cowardly work. The Green Man tells him that his ring spoke to him and told him that the world will be saved as he uses the Green Lantern ring to imbue Oliver's arrow with some extra magic. Green Man says that it will go the distance since the magic will do most of the work, but the only question is if Oliver's aim is true. Green Arrow fires the arrow high into the sky as Jor-El continues to tell Bruce that he isn't cursed, apologizing for the man carrying this guilt, as he himself also hid his own guilt. Jor-El reveals that long ago, he and Martha Wayne had an affair and Bruce was the result, telling Bruce that what he and Martha did was a mistake, but Bruce is his real son and it's why he strongly believes he should sit on the throne, since two kings have loved him. Suddenly, Green Arrow's enchanted arrow hits Jor-El in the eye, killing him dead as Bruce begins feeling his hidden Kryptonian powers bubble to the surface in anger.